Okay,
to be honest,
everybody, welcome.
I stole them from Saagar. He has the same ones in a different color.
Well,
Isn't that
not
adorable?
Here. Well, they are here, but they're in the hotel. All right, we are going to get started here. It's a fun special edition, Breaking Points live here from New York City. Special thank you to WTF Media and Alex, who some of you might know from Andrew Schultz's podcast,
Alex,
for hooking this up. We don't usually do this, as you can tell, but this is going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to start, I think, with the news. And then as a preview for the premium subscribers, you guys programmed the show. And Krystal and I are frankly shocked.
Yeah,
right,
so we
substantive these responses are.
We gave y'all a bunch.
I was annoyed by it, to be honest.
Yeah, so I mean, we gave y'all a bunch of options for premium subscribers that you could vote on. How many votes did we end up getting?
About
you were tracking
7,000.
Yeah, which is awesome. Thank you for voting.
Yeah.
But also, you guys basically gave us homework because we put a bunch of super sort of political hot topics.
Right.
Like, let's spend a few minutes bashing the media
right.
or talking about Trump. No, you literally went for the most wonky substantive topics that you possibly could of the entire list. So what you all voted for is housing policy, healthcare, geopolitical realignment, energy policy, and the future of labor. And we're probably going to throw in some AMA there at the end and start with a little news of the day. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised because we've seen before that the substantive content is very appreciated, although I will say that's not always what people click on YouTube.
That's right.
But I do think our premium subscribers are a little bit of a different ilk. So thank you to everybody who voted. We're excited to dig into these topics because these are some of our favorite things to talk about.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's funny too, just because being here in New York, it actually just feels even more, it just feels so salient, the fact that we're talking about housing. But let's start with Twitter. Obviously, news broke this morning. I was scrolling my phone at 6 a.m. and everybody's freaking out. Elon Musk, okay, he's put in an offer, $52 a share, $41 billion.
$54.20,
Okay,
isn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
You get the $4.20 in there.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
All right, fact checked. $54 per share, a total of $41 billion. So what he writes in his prospectus, which he had to file with the SEC, is he's very clear about his ultimate aim. He doesn't say anything about business. He doesn't talk about the company being run in a way that he doesn't particularly like. What he says is that this is all about free speech. He says in the opening line of his letter, I believe free speech is vital to a democracy. So it's an interesting takeover that he's doing there. And Marshall, I'm curious for your view here on what exactly this means by Elon, because traditional past shareholder activism has to do with, I think this company is being badly run. This is not about that. This is, I think that this company is not, abiding by content moderation standards that I think are important. So what do you think? And then we'll get everybody else in here.
Yeah, just real quick, super pumped to be here. Usually this involves a expensive train ride in a hotel or your couch.
Right.
This is just
we're on
Uber.
Marshall's turf now.
Yeah, so this is awesome. That's
City.
why I'm not wearing a tie.
Kyle's as well.
Rebellion.
That's right.
No, so here's the take. We were talking about this morning. We should think of this more as Elon Musk buying a newspaper than Elon Musk buying a big tech company. So with Jeff Bezos, 2013.
Yeah, I love it when billionaires buy newspapers.
This is a long tradition. Oftentimes, rich people will buy a company, a product, not because they think it's going to throw off all this cash, but they believe in the idea behind it. That's what Jeff Bezos does with the Post. He's like, look, there's obviously some tech things I could do here, but let's get real. I believe in a certain ideology, broadly center-left, democratic politics. I think this has a long legacy within that side of politics, so I want to make it survive.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, he's not coming in the way Paul Singer came in last year, where it's look, Jack Dorsey, love Jack. I think we all like Jack. Shouldn't be CEOs of two companies. It's kind of crazy that, let's forget the edit button jokes for a second. It's kind of crazy that this company has not shipped new products in the past 3 years, that Twitter is the same fundamentally as it's been since 2015.
I don't
When
mind
the final
that
part,
personally, but
and this number is crazy to me, Twitter only made $350 million in profit the past 2 years. So it's kind of wild how disproportionate, how big this company is relative to how little money it actually makes.
Can I have an unpopular opinion. I wonder what you guys think, but I actually don't want the edit button. I kind of like.
Oh, I hate the edit button.
I like that. first of all, I like that people show that they're humans and they make mistakes and like autocorrect and they say stupid shit and it's kind of funny and you just have it there. But also gets confusing if people like delete it and they're able to parse it. And I like that it's just there and that's it and you can't edit it.
I would like it if you delete a tweet and then it's actually deleted. Because usually what happens is like you'll see it on your feed, press it, and then it'll say, this tweet has been deleted. It's like, it's not really deleted if you just, and I don't even delete tweets often, but it's one of those things where it's like, at least make it so that it actually works if you delete it.
We'll get to that, Kyle. Should you delete tweets? Because I think deleting tweets is bad.
Kyle
you're talking to the guy. I am like
he's a purist.
The weirdly most principled man on this. I have tweets up there. If I ever stop doing what I'm doing now, I will never be able to get a job again. Because, no, seriously, because I used to go in. I'd be like high on Percocet at the selling cars, just like firing out tweets. And the next thing you know, somehow my show takes off and everybody's like tweeting back at me everything I said back in 2011. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I said it. You guys have a right to see it. I'll leave it up. So I'm weird on that, but I understand why other people might want to have that option of deleting.
I will delete tweets if it's basically wrong in the future. So I'll say, hey, I tweeted this. It was wrong. And then I take a screenshot of it for posterity. I'm like, just so people know, I deleted this because I don't want to spread fake news on the
Here's
platform.
the other instance where I would delete it. Like this morning, I didn't delete the tweet, but this morning we tweeted out the wrong live stream
Right, there
link.
you go.
Right, yeah.
And that's like, you know, I mean, I just don't want the wrong information flow. And it's not of consequence. It's just an actual error. So something like that.
I agree with like the factual corrections is something that, of course people.
Yeah, but even those sometimes, like for example, we didn't talk about the Andrew Johnson tweet on the show. Kyle did, but I prefer that he left it up and then tried to like add to it.
It was
versus,
funny. It was funny.
Yeah. But
I didn't say he was good. I'm just saying Unity's good.
Yeah, right. But Kyle,
in that case,
it's like actually Unity was really bad in that case.
It's making the opposite point of what you wanted to make. Anyway, I don't mean to get into a total digression here, but Kyle, I want to hear, because we haven't heard on your on Breaking Points, your view on Elon Musk taking over Twitter. So I'm curious.
So I feel like, first of all, the thing that he's saying it's about is the thing that I care the most about in terms of Twitter. I do feel like they've gone way too in the direction of being censorious. But I don't think this is an actual solution to it. I don't think we should like wait for a billionaire to come save us. I think the only way to fix this problem is you have to regulate Twitter like it's a public utility and basically expand First Amendment protections and officially, legally recognize that this is the new public square in the same way that Facebook is the new public square. And even you could argue maybe Instagram and some others are the new public square. So any large social media outlets should be regulated like a public utility, and then you expand First Amendment protections. The thing about Elon is, and I might get in trouble for saying this, but I've been saying stuff like this about Elon for a very long time. I don't trust his motives. I mean, this is a guy who he paid 3.27% in taxes. That was what's called his true tax rate from a big expose from ProPublica. He strikes me as a lot like all of the other billionaires, and there are other ulterior motives as to why he would do this. He did you were talking to me the other day about how you read an article. He did some weird maneuver to make money off of the move in the first place. Like, explain that to people.
So, I mean, listen, I don't know if it was intentional or it was
says
just
it was
an
unintentional.
oversight. But in any case, because he was late in filing a legally required form announcing that he had a significant stake in Twitter, he was able to continue buying Twitter stock at the lower pre-Elon announcement price. So he netted $156 million off of that. And that's not the first time that he has personally financially benefited from his quote unquote free speech on Twitter. The whole long and short of this is, I mean, I feel very similar to what Kyle just stated. Do I think that Elon Musk will have a content moderation policy on Twitter that I personally think is better and important for a democracy and more in the direction of free speech? Yes. Do I think that in general it's a good thing to be hoping that our class of billionaires happens to have incentives and personal financial interests that line up with what happens to be good in that moment? No. So I don't see Elon Musk in any different way than I see Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or some billionaire hedge fund or anybody else. I fully suspect that they'll be working in their own personal interest. Occasionally, that's going to align with the public good and with what we would like to see happen, but it's no system to exist in to just hope for the benevolence of the billionaires. And actually, Marshall, I think your point is really smart of how to think of this as like a billionaire buying a newspaper, because that is how he
thinks of it.
Yeah.
And he wants his own personal ability to put out there whatever he wants to. And if it has good impacts for everybody else and, brings Trump back on Twitter and all of those things, then that's fine. It's just not a real answer.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, let me just say the true test of whether or not Elon actually believes in free speech is going to be, are you even going to unban your ideological opponents? Because, so you ask me, hey, should Donald Trump be unbanned? And I say yes. I actually think that's a relatively easy question. Now, I despise Donald Trump, but I think he should be allowed back on
Is
Twitter.
a Tesla Union account going to be allowed on Twitter?
Not
Yes.
just
Yeah,
that.
that's-
Yeah,
right.
Another good example is there was a mass banning of like large prominent Antifa accounts about a year or two ago. Is Elon Musk going to be the one who puts his cape on and saves Antifa?
But wait,
I don't know.
But quick thing though, like, and this is where I'll just be a bit of devil's advocate here. Like, why should those I don't know what those Antifa accounts were doing, but like, so here's the problem here. Twitter is terrible when it comes to actual enforcement, right? So like, why does the Hunter Biden story matter beyond just like the clear screw up? It matters because we all know that there would not have been an equivalent that happened to the Biden campaign. That was bad moderation, a badly run company in a way that obviously benefited Team Biden. But bad enforcement is different than no enforcement. And I don't think my position, like if Antifa people were promoting violence on the platform, then they should be banned. And guess what?
So,
if it turned out that BLM was doing the same thing and they weren't getting banned, that's a problem. But that's different. All I was saying is like the Antifa BLM violence takes are different to me than a union organizing ban.
So let me answer that. So it depends. So on the one hand, you're correct. Just because we believe in free speech does not mean that you can do direct threats of violence. Not only should that not be allowed on social media, that's also not allowed under the First Amendment. There are very few exceptions to this idea of free speech. You got libel, slander, defamation, direct threats of violence. You could argue something like doxing is in there. In my opinion, based on what I've seen, I think Twitter has gone beyond this notion of direct threats of violence, just that being wrong, because we all agree that's wrong, to even like general vague calls of violence are now considered a direct threat of violence. And I don't agree with that. I think you should be able to say, I got pitchfork in my hand and I'm going after the billionaires or some shit. That's vaguely violent, but it's not a direct threat of violence. So I would just say we got to lean on the side of free speech, but yes, there are some clear lines.
100%. And I think that's what this is actually about. Nobody actually wants 100%, no moderation. Like child porn obviously should.
Oh, of course.
Right? And so like these are all things which are written within the law. The issue obviously comes to enforcement. And when it comes to enforcement, I think Krystal's correct. This is probably going to align here. But one thing is we shouldn't present this as a fait accompli. So it's 11:26 a.m. here on the East Coast. The Twitter board reportedly has been meeting for the last hour and a half. As far as I can tell.
Love to be a fly on the wall.
Man, I can't imagine.
Total pandemonium.
So I took one for the team. And just right now, Twitter will host an all-hands meeting with staff this afternoon to discuss the Elon Musk takeover bid. This is from Sarah Fisher at Axios. She's a great reporter. The thing I do want to emphasize to people is that fiduciarily, this is a really tricky one. So I took one for the team. I watched CNBC this morning as this was breaking, which, by the way, was amazing because they were loving this. And so here's the way that they present it. It's going to be very hard for the board not to take this offer. The reason why is that if they reject the offer because of such the premium that he's put on the share price, they will get sued because he has put in his letter that says, I will dump my stock, 9% of the company, if you don't accept that. That's obviously going to lower their price. So they open themselves up to a litany of lawsuits if they don't accept it, which would actually put them in pretty shaky legal reasoning. On the other hand,
what you're saying is that they wouldn't be upholding their
shareholder
fiduciary responsibility to act in the best
which
interest
is
of the
all
shareholder
you're supposed to do as a board. And so at the same time, they're in a real conundrum. Now, I did see from a leading corporate law expert that Elon may have actually played himself a little bit because he said in there that he will dump his stock if they don't take that. And so the board on legal grounds could defend the rejection of the offer and say, well, he's trying to coerce us into doing this, which could put, regardless, this is a nightmare for the Twitter board, and they're getting sued regardless of what happens in the situation. Elon himself also opening himself up to some litigation. But per the immediate reaction on CNBC and per the Wall Street analysts that they had on at the time, they saw almost no world where the board would be able to reject this from a pure fiduciary responsibility, which they legally have to uphold, which puts them in a real bind, right, Marshall? I mean, it's like they can't be like, well, this doesn't align with values of the company. That stuff doesn't really matter.
We had Alex Kantorowicz on Breaking Points last week where I did an interview, and he made this point, and this is like really fascinating, right? So that number, $350 million of profit the past 2 years, aka if his company is not performing well, everything that Elon is talking about, we need more free speech, we need more those different bits. All of those things don't actually align with Twitter doing better as a company. So I'm not saying this is going to make it easy to stop the takeover bid. It's just like a really interesting dynamic. So like everything you're talking about, right? Like that sounds like a great newspaper. Like what you're describing, like people are free, there is speech, there is debate, people can be contentious. But at the same time, like Alex was pointing out that how do most of the big tech companies actually make money? Google, like Facebook, it's ads. TikTok, ads too. Twitter, if you are if you're a company who wants to buy advertising, the thing you are not going to be super willing to do, if you're not willing to spend money already, is, oh, by the way, Twitter's going to be even more open. So like, once again, it's just like, newspaper side, great. Business side, I would not want to work here.
Twitter's just a bad business.
Yeah, like that's the takeaway.
Aren't they experimenting with some like premium feed?
No one's paying for it.
Who's going to pay for that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Krystal's most exclusive
literally
tweets.
don't know a single person who is actually using that function.
Well,
I don't know anybody.
I will show all of you my nipple if you follow me on Twitter Premium.
But you could,
I don't even have
here's the
Twitter
thing.
Premium.
If you even wanted to go there, OnlyFans would be a better use of your time.
That's true.
There's actually if the world needs this content, we should make it OnlyFans. It'd be far more better than like a Twitter thing.
All right, we'll table that idea.
Yeah, we have to table this. It's 11:30. We got to make sure that we.
It's 11:30, and we're already talking about OnlyFans.
We're talking about OnlyFans. We have to cover the real issues.
Because cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.